to Britain now, and the Labour government is set to spend millions of pounds on communities in reform-leaning regions, and the funding will be used to regenerate some of the UK's poorest areas, several of which were won by Nigel Farage's upstart party in the recent local elections. And Sir Keir Starmer's MPs warn that the party faces electoral wipeout without more crucial investment. Well, this is a fruitful topic to debate, and to do that, I'm joined in the studio by Reform UK MP for Ashfield, Lee Anderson, the Labour MP for North Durham, Luke Akehurst, and GB News senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Let's start with you first, if we could, Luke. There's no window dressing the fact that the Labour Party had a terrible day at the local elections. Yep. A lot of people criticising Keir Starmer, saying sounds like it's leaning towards Nigel Farage on immigration. Meanwhile, the Runcorn by-election seemed to be a pretty grim bellwether for the direction of travel. Now some action is being taken. Hundreds of millions of pounds being put towards seats, 600 areas we understand. Tell us the plan and tell us, do you think it'll work?
First of all, I don't want to count chickens until they've hatched, because actually there's a comprehensive spending review, and this is just one newspaper story that hints that one of the things that might be in that spending review is regeneration money basically for the most deprived neighbourhoods. There's an independent commission on neighbourhoods that's identified 613 of the most deprived neighbourhoods. We're talking quite small areas. One of them's in my constituency. And that those are mission critical neighbourhoods, because the things that the government wants to sort out in terms of health outcomes, education outcomes, crime and higher economic activity,
but it's fair
the stats are lowest in those places, so it makes sense if you're a Labour government to target them.
But there's no coincidence, Mr Akehurst, that 85% of these areas are areas where reform recently won. It's a mission critical neighbourhood, not just because mission critical in terms of helping the communities, but mission critical in terms of the Labour Party surviving.
I think it's the other way round. It's that because people in those communities are so frustrated that they've had decades of under economic investment and haven't seen things change, they're very frustrated about the pace of change, and so they turn to reform really to shout and say, come on, when are we going to get to see the things that we've always wanted? And
it's a fair point. Jo Platt, who lost the seat in Runcorn, she said visible decline is pushing people towards alternatives like reform. And by the way, the same thing happened with the Boris way, with Boris Johnson in Brexit. People went from Labour to Conservative for the first time. And then we had that thing called levelling up. Before that, we had the Northern Powerhouse. Millions of pounds were thrown at the red wall to keep them to be Conservative. It didn't work then.
Well,
why do you think it'll work now?
Nothing was put into my constituency, and people are very conscious of that they didn't get anything from levelling up. And you can go to Stanley, which is one of the two main towns, and people are very depressed by the fact that I think it was the Daily Telegraph said it was the sixth ugliest high street in Britain, and they're like, why isn't government of any type sorting that out fast enough? And that's a huge priority for me. So if it does turn out there's money in the spending review for regenerating towns like that, I will be absolutely delighted. And I think it's in line with Labour values. That's what Labour governments are for, isn't it? They're trying to put more economic activity and more public spending into the communities that need it most.
And I think it's absolutely fair to say that any MP would appreciate more money for their constituency. That's the point, to deliver on your promise as an elected representative. But some of the things being touted in the paper today, pardon my French, they don't particularly sound like vote winners en masse. Repairing playgrounds, that's important. Hiring wardens for antisocial behaviour, that's also important.
So you've picked up on
enough?
So first off, this isn't going to be like game-changing amounts of money. It's going to be a useful amount of money, but when it's spread around 613 places, it's not going to suddenly transform people's lives. But the choice of what to spend it on, my understanding, that will be made by committees of local residents. So if they think that wardens to deal with antisocial behaviour is the top priority, then that's what they'll be able to spend it on. It won't be central government saying you have to spend it on these particular things, as long as it feeds into tackling the targets in the government's mission. So the things about raising educational attainment, people's health getting better, more people having jobs, less crime.
Okay. Lee Anderson, let's bring you in now. As former Conservative Party, now Reform, you live in these areas, you're brought up in these areas, you've seen levelling up come and go. Do you think this will work? And do you think the Labour Party are running scared?
Well, I agree with Luke in that we welcome this sort of money into these deprived areas. And it's funny that, look at some of the deprived areas in the Midlands, in the north, northwest, northeast. That I've seen their high streets fail, they've seen the pubs close, the businesses close, deprivation, and all that comes with it. But what have they all got in common, Martin? Over the past 50, 60, 70 years, they've always had a Labour MP and they've always had Labour-run councils, and that's the problem. It's a massive problem. And it was a problem in Ashfield until they had the good sense to elect me in 2019 and then re-elect me with a bigger vote share just last year. But look, we had probably over £100 million of the levelling up pot in Ashfield. Did it do the Tories any good? No. They went from 20,000 votes down to 2,500, 3,000 votes. I think it is. What people want to see is money invested in the area that makes a real difference, something that you see every day. And that, for me, is the highways, it's the potholes, it's the roads. We've got some of the worst roads in Europe now, and if we're going to dole some money out in these communities, fix our roads, that would be my priority. But
presumably, Mr Akehurst, that's precisely the kind of thing that local committees that in Labour areas might choose to spend money on.
So the government has already put a huge amount into a fund for potholes, and I agree that that's a priority. Actually, I think these things are important because they affect how people view the neighbourhood that they live in. But the bigger amounts of money in the spending review that are going to be really interesting are the amounts on infrastructure. And whether the mayors in areas with combined mayoral authorities manage to put in really good bids for new infrastructure, new roads, new rail networks, etc., that those really would be game-changing in terms of bringing in business and enabling people to access jobs.
OK. Can I turn now to another story we're covering today? And there's a new poll come out. This one is by Freshwater Strategies. I think we've got a map we can put up of the change, the potential electoral landscape of Britain. To talk you through it quickly, Reform are leading. We see there once again 10 percentage points ahead now on 32. That's their second highest ever. Plus for Labour is flat on 22. The Conservatives nosediving on 19, losing 8. Liberal Democrats 15, putting 1 on. Lee Anderson, this poll is backing up what we call momentum. It's also painting a terrible picture for the Conservatives. They're simply in freefall. And it also, off the bat, the timing of this is crucial. Keir Starmer had done those trade deals with America. He'd done those trade deals with India. Doesn't seem to have resonated.
It doesn't resonate, Martin. People aren't taking any notice of the Labour Party or the Conservative Party at the moment. Let's be clear, the Conservative Party, I think, in my opinion, are toast. They're finished now. And if I was allowed to, I'd show you some of the messages on my phone from Tory councillors, ex-Tory MPs who are wanting to make the move. And I'm saying, well, you just join if you want to. There's no deals to be struck that people want to come over and be promised things.
Any big names you might recognise?
Well, there's a few in there, but I can't divulge the information stored within my phone. But yeah, they're rattled. The rats are leaving the sinking ship, pretty sharpish. But what we want is what we saw just 2 weeks ago. We want real people from the real world, real communities like Ashfield to step up and say, we've had enough of this nonsense, we've had enough of the Labour Party, we've had enough of the Conservative Party, we're going to step up and put our name on that ballot paper. And they did in huge numbers, Martin. We had the most amount of candidates out of all the parties, and guess what? We got 10 councils, 677 councillors, 2 mayorals and a new MP.
Let's bring in Nigel Nelson for a comment here. The media have called it the Nige Mayor. There's a Nige Mayor for both parties.
That's a Nige Mayor.
Actually, we have 2 Nige Mayors. On a serious point, both of the main political parties getting caught in a pincer movement here. Votes hemorrhaging away to the Liberal Democrats from the Conservatives and to Reform, and Labour leaking to Reform as well. We talk about the sugar rush after the local elections. Is this a blip? It's starting to look like it might be something more consecutive. It could be a trend.
Well, certainly it's a trend because, Reform have either been first or second in polls for the last couple of months. So things are certainly moving. But the caution here is that we're a long way from a general election. So everything can change from that. If you were taking these particular polls, you're talking about a Reform government with a majority of more than 100. If they worked out, as I say, this was the day after the election, we would have the Lib Dems would be the official official opposition, Labour in third place, and the SNP beating the Tories and the Tories being in fifth place. So that would be a completely changed political map of Britain. But I caution, as I said, that the election's a long way away.
Luke Akehurst, when you see polls like that and a second analysis of the council elections, Ed Miliband losing his seat to the Reform Party, of the 81 Westminster seats there in that map voted last Thursday, only 3 of them would return a Labour MP. Are a lot of people out there, perhaps yourself included, may I ask, feeling like I could be the next Runcorn? You know, we've got a serious nightmare.
Well, I don't need an opinion poll to tell me that, because I was at the count watching the votes that had been cast by people that happily voted for me in the general election, and then quite large numbers of them switched over to Reform.
What are they telling you? Why are they doing that?
So on the doorstep, 4 things came through. Concern that we weren't moving fast enough to tackle immigration, cost of living, linked to cost of living, people hit by the winter fuel allowance cut if they were just above the threshold, and then the state of the local economy, the things that we've already been talking about. But we've got 3 or 4 years to actually deliver change for people. If we can't bring change to those communities, make them better places to live, make people better off, then we won't deserve to get re-elected. But I think, we've got a government with a lot of energy and some good ideas, and actually over that time that we've got, we're going to change people's lives, and they'll be in a different viewpoint on us once we actually get round to the next general election.
Lee Anderson, final word. Do you think, it's a long time to go. No, the Reform could implode, the Labour Party could resurge. 4 years are long years in politics. Look what happened to Boris Johnson's majority, of which you were a part of. Or do you think the writing is on the wall? Are people so fed up of the 2 main parties, they just want change?
Yeah, well, the difference with Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party, which I was a part of, they were in government, so they're always going to get criticised whilst they're in government. We're not in government. We're the official opposition now. We're making all the noise in Parliament. If you pick the papers up every single day, Martin, it's Reform UK that's on the front of the papers, holding this useless, weak, spineless government to account on a daily basis. Our membership is going through the roof. There's more and more people wanting to be candidates. You saw the recent elections. It's only going one way, Martin, and we are pushing at an open door to number 10 Downing Street.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks for your time. Luke Akehurst, especially, thank you for coming in today, MP for Labour for North Durham. Lee Anderson, Ashfield, and of course Nigel Nelson, our second Nigel Mayor. Thank you very much.